Hello and welcome back to League of Items patch 8.5 rundown. In this video, I'm going to go through each of the changes real quick, and then at the end, I'm going to try to get some footage in the training tool and figure out the new champion Kai'Sa. My initial reaction is that she's probably broken. Riot always releases broken champions, which doesn't mean that she's going to immediately be the best champion in all of your games, but once people figure out the best build for her, the best rune setup, and all that kind of stuff, then she'll be very strong. Next up, we have Azir. Azir's Q was nerfed. That's a nerf overall. Galio's Q cooldown and mana was increased at later ranks. This isn't going to be a big deal. Galio's problem is that he can shove the wave and then go to a side lane, which is like a lot of pressure on the map. So that is a slight nerf, but Galio's fine. Jhin actually received a pretty big buff, and I think that champions like Jhin, Miss Fortune, are going to become more important because of the rise of champions like Brand and Zyra as supports. The most important change is the change to his W. Now that anybody's damaged by Jhin or his allies, they can get rooted, and that's a great change. I actually played a game of Jhin yesterday, and I could tell that was a big difference for him. I think he's much better now. Nocturne was buffed in a couple different ways. He has more base healing on his passive later in the game. The cooldown gets decreased faster. The missile speed's faster on his Q. The W was bug fixed a little bit. Well, not bug fixed, but they made it feel better. And then Paranoia was increased by 50%. So instead of 4 seconds, it's 6 seconds. That's a big buff. Nocturne's very good right now. Olaf was already starting to see play. They buffed him again because I don't know why. Rengar, he was mostly changed. Now you can't do like the double Q or triple Q that you used to be able to do. Then they also changed this a little bit. The Bola Strike can buffer Q or W, which isn't going to be a big difference, but it's just a small quality of life thing. Thrill of the Hunt, the True Vision is going to stay on the target for longer, which is good. Rise was nerfed a little bit. The damage on his E is okay. I mean, I played against Rise yesterday, and he still pumps out a ton of damage. Realm Warp being like having a longer cooldown really isn't that big of a deal because you want to use it at least once in a late game team fight. And with your 40-45% CDR, however much you get, this isn't going to be that big of a difference. It's an increase by like 30 seconds. So maybe you can't use it as often in the late game, but the fact that you can still use it at all is still a very good ultimate. Shyvana was buffed a little bit. Skarner was nerfed a little bit. Swain was buffed again, which is crazy because Swain's already a strong champion. Tristana's base attack range was changed, which is pretty impactful in the early stages of the game. And the way they tried to compensate for that was by allowing her to be more aggressive with her rocket jump. So if you see more Tristana's jumping in with W, that's why. It does 25 more damage. Twitch had a slight buff. Volibear, slight nerf. And Zoe is actually good again. I know there was at least one player that I've seen who had like a 70% win rate, 80% win rate on the last patch, even after the Zoe nerfs. So I think she's still a very good champion. Sion, they bug fixed a little bit. Banner of Command, they nerfed. Still a very good item. Cinderhulk was nerfed a little bit. This is going to nerf tank junglers a decent amount. So I would expect the new jungle meta to be very fast and aggressive and hopefully games speed up a little bit. Hextech GLP was buffed a little bit. I still don't think it's as good as Archangel Staff. There are champions who use Hextech GLP better than the other mana items, but those other mana items are better. So I think the better items with the champions who use it the best are still better than Hextech GLP. Warmog's armor was changed. The threshold is changed, so that 250 health is going to make some champions not get Warmog's heart right when they build Warmogs, which is kind of a big deal for the sustain aspect, but you still get good raw stats out of Warmogs. Cloud Drake was buffed. The Precision and Domination tree was buffed very slightly, like 1 ability power, 0.6 attack damage. Press the Attack was buffed again. Press the Attack is very good still. This is the kind of thing where Riot is trying to get people to use Press the Attack more, so they keep nerfing things like Fleet Footwork, which weren't even that great to begin with. This was like a game style thing that people just kind of bought into, but it's really not that good. Can it help you survive lane? Sure, but if you're on the winning side of a matchup, you shouldn't take it. It's a philosophical difference I have with most players. Aftershock, cooldown increased. Aftershock is still probably the best keystone in the game. Mana Flow Band has an indicator. Kai'Sa's passive, her basic attacks deal extra magic damage on hit. Kai'Sa's basic attacks, Void Seeker, and allied effects cause plasma. When they stack plasma 4 times, it explodes, dealing damage. There's a cool visual in the game. It's very similar to Diana and the other champions that have to get 3 hits, but Kai'Sa has to get 4 hits because she gets a ton of attack speed later in the game with certain kinds of builds. And I've tried those out. They're actually really cool. Living Weapon. So Living Weapon, this adapts your abilities depending on how much of a stat you have, and that'll make more sense coming up. Icathian Rain. I think that Icathian Rain? One of those. This is a wave clear tool, and it also does a decent amount of damage to champions, but this is probably what you're going to want to get at level 1 so that you can deal with the minion wave a little bit faster, maybe push for a fast level 2 if you're playing her in the bot lane. There are AD and AP ratios on her Q, W, and her ultimate. Her ultimate is only a shield, though it doesn't do damage. So 6 missiles. Once you get 100 bonus attack damage, it gets 12 missiles, which I haven't run the numbers on that in terms of damage, but I think this. I know there are a lot of players who are putting 5 points into Q. Personally, I like maxing E first because of the synergy with her passive, but that's just going to come down to player preference. I'm not sure if there's any way to prove which one is better right now, but we can look at that further once we get into the practice tool. Void Seeker, after a half-second delay, Kai'Sa fires a Void Blast in the target direction. So this is kind of like a Hawkshot that has like half the range of Hawkshot. I think Hawkshot's a global, and this is going to hit the first target, reveal them, and apply Plasma. So applying Plasma is going to allow you to attack them and proc your passive. Once you get 100 ability power, this will put 3 Plasma on the target, and it refunds 50% of the cooldown. So that would be... This is what you're going to level up last, so it's still going to be about 10 seconds, no matter what. Supercharger, this is my favorite ability of Kai'Sa's. She charges for 1.5 to 0.75 seconds based on your bonus attack speed, and she gets bonus movement speed. And she gets bonus movement speed depending on how much attack speed she has. So then after charging up, she gains attack speed up to 80%, and all of her basic attacks are going to reduce the cooldown of this by a half second, so it's up a lot of the time. And then once you build 100% bonus attack speed, you will gain invisibility every time you charge. And that's really cool. It's like having a Vayne Tumble that makes you go invisible off of cooldown. It's not instant, but I think it's much stronger overall. I think the invisibility is a very cool thing to incorporate into the game. It's a very strong mechanic. Last up, Killer Instinct. Kai'Sa dashes with extreme speed to a target location near an enemy champion with Plasma. So this means that if you hit your W on somebody and you're running towards them, then you can ultimate into them. You see here 2500. So once this is max range, it'll be max range. A max range W will allow you to immediately jump at them. You also get a shield depending on AD and AP. So for Kai'Sa, what I've been doing recently, I've been trying precision with sorcery, and this is just a practice tool game, so obviously I'm not trying to optimize against like the enemy team. But this is what I've been doing. Press the attack, Triumph, Alacrity, and Cut Down. I still think Cut Down is better than Coup de Grace. And then Sorcery, I went Sorcery second. I have Celerity and Water Walking, because one of the things I like about Kai'Sa is her mobility, and I think if you can play her in the mid lane, Water Walking is going to allow you to go to the side lanes much faster, and you could get ganks off as a mid laner. So kind of like a baby TF. I think that'd be pretty cool. So before we get into the practice tool, I usually take a look whenever like a champion comes out that I'm interested in playing, and I look at what some of the professional players are doing on her. So one game that stood out to me was Reckless. He went 22-3 as Kai'Sa, and this probably has somewhat to do with like people not being used to how she works. But I'm just gonna look at his build. So he went Fleet Footwork, Overheal, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then Celerity and Gathering Storm. I think a lot of people are going to go with Gathering Storm so that they get the attack speed or the attack damage off of it. And based off of what I've seen, I think AP Kai'Sa is going to be better because of the build that she can get. So he went Q first, like I was saying. Started with the Doran Shield, goes Essence Reaver, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge. That's a pretty expensive build, so this means that in this game specifically, there was a lot of gold, extra gold, in the early to mid game. So he probably got a bunch of kills in laning phase, which probably comes down to players not being familiar with her kit. Like, look at he earned 19,000 gold. Like, that's just ridiculous. That's not a typical game. Spawn an enemy. So what you see here at the bottom, that's because of the passive. Once you get the 4th stack, the fifth stack is going to explode. So that's what that looks like. That's her Q. Those were 6 missiles. That's her W. It's a pretty fast missile speed. I'm just gonna reset that, and we'll see how far it can go. Like, that's a really far range. And then this is her supercharger. She gains a little bit of attack speed, a little bit of movement speed. And then since this target has plasma, I can dash to it with my ultimate. Like I said, when you look at a player like Reckless's build, we can try to replicate that real fast. So he went with Essence Reaver, Static Shiv, and Infinity Edge. And I mean, he also had like a QSS and stuff like that. But just look at the numbers on this. So 3,400 plus 2,600, that's 6,000. That's 9,400 for a core build, right? And most of the time, you're going to have 2 items at the 20-minute mark, not 3. So this was just a crazy game. These 2 items, 34 plus 26. He should finish that a little bit before the 20-minute mark, probably closer to 17 or 18. Personally, what I've been doing, what I think is a good build for her in order to get a couple evolutions active, I like Ginsu's, Nashor's Tooth, and Berserker Greaves. So right when you buy these 3 items, which takes 3,600 plus 3,000, that's 6,600, plus 1,100, that's 7,700 gold. Easy to do. That's an easy number to hit in most games. You get the ability to evolve 2 of her abilities. So this means that now, whenever I charge, I'm invisible, and my W applies 3 stacks of plasma instead of 2, which is going to help me proc the passive faster. So I'm going to go back out here. See how fast she's attacking? The other thing is Ginsu synergizes well with Nashor's Tooth because the on hits are going to happen twice every once in a while once you're at Ginsu's rage levels. And then the on hit damage from her passive is also going to proc twice. So the other thing, when you have Supercharger active and you have 6 stacks of Ginsu's rage, you're up to like 2.45 attacks per second. That's a ton of attacks. It means that you're going to be able to get press the attack off easily. You're going to stack her plasma fast and just continuously pump out damage. I think it's going to be a very good build. I'm not sure how it's going to behave in game, but Nashor's Tooth is a great item. Ginsu's Rage Blade is a great item, and Kai'Sa immediately becomes one of the best users of both of these items. So this is the build that I would recommend trying out first. So just as a point of reference, I wanted to compare Kai'Sa's E with Miss Fortune's W. Miss Fortune's W strut, she gains 25 movement speed whenever she hasn't taken damage in 5 seconds. This goes all the way up to 100 movement speed. 100 movement speed is equal to roughly 1,200 gold. When it's active, Miss Fortune gains bonus attack speed for 4 seconds and brings Strut's passive effect to full power. So this means that you gain the movement speed increase and you also gain the bonus attack speed. So every time you press W when it's max rank, you get about 3,700 golds worth of stats. That's really good. I know that most players do not max Strut, but I think it's definitely something that players should consider moving forward. I'm not sure at what point in the game this becomes realistic, but just think about the amount of power you would get every time you press W. It's like it's just really it makes a lot of sense theoretically. So it's either you max this first and you're getting that 3700 gold every time you press W, or you max it second and then you have to wait until what, level 13, something like that. So that's Miss Fortune's W right now. Now Kai'Sa's E is somewhat similar. So the minimum movement speed, if we were going to max this first, like theoretically, active Kai'Sa charges for 1.5 to 0.75 seconds based on attack speed. So this, if you're going to max Supercharger first, you need to build attack speed. And the build that I just showed you with Nashor's Tooth, Ginsu's Rageblade, and Berserker's Greaves is going to activate the evolution, the living weapon, and it's also going to give you the maximum amount of the bonuses. So once you have those 3 items, whenever you charge Supercharger, it's going to take 0.75 seconds. You're going to gain 100%. You're going to gain 100% movement speed, and then you're also going to gain 80% attack speed. So percent move speed is worth more gold than flat movement speed. Flat movement speed is worth 12 gold per point. Percent movement speed is worth 39.5. So we're going to do equals 80 times 39.5. That's 3,160 gold just off of the movement speed. After charging up, Kai'Sa gains bonus attack speed for 5 seconds. So assuming this is maxed, we're going to do equals 80 times 25. So 2,000. So now we have 5,160. The difference between Miss Fortune and Kai'Sa. Oh, and this doesn't even take into consideration that you can reduce the cooldown on E, or that she's going to turn invisible all the time, which is pretty crazy. The going invisible, you can't quantify that really, but I think is very good. So if we're just comparing the E to the W, the one thing, obviously, this requires Kai'Sa to not only put 5 points in, but also get 100% attack speed. So this is going to start happening around the 20-minute mark. Miss Fortune can spike a lot earlier, but she has a lower ceiling in the late game, and I think that's what this shows. If you wanted to compare apples to apples, so this is kind of why I'm leaning towards Supercharger. I think it's more game breaking in the sense that you're very fast. You can be not anywhere on the map, but you can go all over the place, because think about it. The range on her W means that you could go like halfway into the river, shoot your W at a lane. If it hits, then you use your ultimate to get in. Like, seems really good. Basically, what you need to determine for yourself is what you need to figure out for yourself is, would you rather play around Icathian Rain and being very close range in order to get all the damage off, or Supercharger, where you're very fast, can determine how far away you want to be from your enemy, which is like 500 because she has 500 attack range, but you're just so much more mobile. You can get in and out of the fight much faster. I think eventually Supercharger is going to be the way to go, especially if she's mid lane, especially due to the fact that she can use Ginsu's and Nashor's Tooth so well. And in the mid lane right now, with all the new mana items that came out, it's difficult to differentiate yourself as a mid laner, but Kai'Sa can immediately do that by going a different build path than almost any other mid laner. So that's all I have for patch 8.5. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure whenever you can play Kai'Sa, try this build out and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.